Hello and welcome back to the first podcast of 2023. As always, I am joined with Nathan, and because not even really as a planned break, we sort of missed the three Christmas games and the first game of the new year. But actually, the way that results have gone, it sort of feels like even better that we've got three games to talk about, to be honest. Nathan, firstly, before we go into what has been a fantastic end to 2022 and a brilliant start to 2023 for Michael Carrick's team, did you have a nice Christmas? Did everything that you wanted arrive under your tree on Christmas Day?
It did, yeah. Had a lovely Christmas. All about spending time with family and having good times. So, yeah, fantastic on my part. What about you, Chris?
Yes, it was. Do you know what? It was just a really chilled one. I feel like I've done nothing. Ate loads, been in a few food comas, and that's about it, really. Watched all the football. I mean, it doesn't really get much better, actually.
Doesn't, and I'm a big fan of the darts as well, and it's the best time of year for the darts this Christmas period. So yeah, been looking forward to watching sport every evening over this past week or so. But it's been broken up by three games for the Boro, and I mean, it doesn't get much better than it has been in the past week. 3 wins over this Christmas period, and Boro have flown up the league. So let's get into tackling these 3 games.
Yeah, let's do it, Nathan. It feels almost like a lifetime ago, and I think that sort of period in between, everyone talks about it, the period in between Christmas and New Year, where no one really knows what day it is, no one really knows where they're meant to be or if they're back at work, but there's sort of just loads of football and you're still eating leftovers throughout that time. So we're going back to Boxing Day first, Nathan. Of course, at the Riverside, Boxing Day football, it's always great, especially when Middlesbrough are at home, obviously. And we took on Colo Touré's Wigan team. Of course, earlier on in the season, Leo's Middlesbrough team had put 4 past them. And sorry to any Wigan fans that might be listening, I very much highly doubt you are. We put 4 past you again, didn't we, Nathan?
Yeah, we did. They say lightning doesn't strike twice, but it did on this occasion, and it's striking every week for Wigan Athletic at this moment in time, conceding 4. But yeah, Boro got that 3 points on Boxing Day, 3 points at the Riverside. It was a good performance, in my opinion. One change to the team that lost to Burnley at Turf Moor. Duncan Watmore came in for Riley McGree. I thought that was a change that was slightly strange because we know how Middlesbrough have been playing so far under Michael Carrick, with Giles having the license to get forward because McGree tucks in, but with Watmore moving in for McGree into the starting 11, I kind of thought that Boro would be a bit more direct down that left-hand side, with Watmore being an attacking winger instead of that attacking midfield type that McGree is, which I was kind of wrong, because Watmore did drift inside and make up numbers in the middle of the pitch, particularly in that first half as well, which, yeah, it was kind of good to see. Shows that we've got another player in there that can do that job. But early on in the game, little bit cagey. Boro have a lot of the ball as per usual, really. And we eventually broke the deadlock through Marcus Force on 25 minutes. Duncan Watmore, good work. This time on the right-hand side. So, as I say, they're meant to be starting on that left. He's over on that right-hand side and does really well. Jinks past one, spins and squares the ball to Marcus Force, which, I mean, it's a fantastic finish, going away from goal on that left foot, and he sort of just guides it into that far post. And I kind of felt that had we got one early on in the game, which we did, then it'd be pretty plain sailing from then on, which it was.
Yeah, it was. And as you say there, I mean, great work by Watmore, and it again we're seeing, although, as you mentioned, it wasn't Riley McGree off the left. I think in this system, obviously, Michael Carrick allows his wingers to almost wander off a little bit, and certainly in attacking phases of play, you see the left winger pop up as a central striker. You see, obviously, in the previous two games, Marcus Forss off the right popping up as a, you know, as a striker, as a number 10. It's all very interchangeable, and I think that's why we're playing such good football at the moment. That freedom almost for that almost front four, I guess you could call it, to not do what they want, but just have a bit of attacking freedom. And yeah, as you say, it comes from that with Watmore, and a special mention to Marcus Forss with that finish. It almost looks strange watching it back, because the ball comes across him, and for a right-footed player, you expect him to just swing his right foot at it straight away, but he almost lets it come across him and guides it into the far corner with his left foot. And to get that much backlift, almost standing still, I guess, to get the ball high and obviously into the far corner, it's a remarkable finish. And yeah, I mean, obviously, Michael Carrick's shown a lot of trust in Marcus Forss since he took over, really. And although goals haven't been, you know, his strongest point, as we sort of all thought it would be when he signed, we are starting to see goals and assists and contributions come through now. And it's only down to Carrick's trust in him, because, yeah, as I say, it's a great finish. And obviously he had a fantastic part in the Blackburn game as well, but obviously we'll get onto that in a little bit. But yeah, as you say, in terms of the first half, a solid performance, a convincing performance. And again, as you mentioned, I always felt as long as we got a goal relatively early, then we could sort of take control of the game and, you know, really decide what we wanted to do to Wigan once we had that advantage.
Yeah, and we did just that going in the second half as well. One change at half time. Johnny Howson went off with a slight concussion issue and was replaced by Alex Mowat. And Mowat played a part in the second goal of the game straight after half time, wins the ball, knocks it to Hayden Hackney. Hayden Hackney, I mean, we'll get on to him a little bit later, but what a man he's proven to be in the middle of the park for Middlesbrough. He threads the ball down the side of Wigan's left-hand side, completely takes the right back out of the game. Giles is on his way, and one touch cross into the feet of that man, the train, and it's a brilliant finish. Left foot, nearly takes the roof of the net off, and from then on, it really was the Tuba show. He got that first goal of the game. He's wheeled away with a cartwheel, a forward roll, and the guns. It sums him up perfectly at the minute, because he's firing and he's on fire.
Yeah, he is. He really is. Yeah, it all started off as a little bit of a joke, the whole Tuba train. And I mean, me and you have spoken outside of the podcast about, actually, I think in the first podcast of this season, after the friendly at the Riverside, we almost tongue-in-cheek said, you know, he made a good cameo. Could he prove to be a vital part of the team? And I mean, I think we've got to hold our hands up, and most people have recently, to be honest. Ate a little bit of humble pie and held their hands up and said no one could have expected how vital of a player he's become to this team. His change in position, his ability in front of goal, all different types of finishes, left foot, right foot, headers. It's remarkable, almost as remarkable as that Robbie Keane-esque celebration, as you mentioned. just another word on Ryan Giles. I mean, first time cross. It is literally on a plate. The definition of laying the ball on a plate for Chuba to snap up. And he certainly did. I think for me, the best goal out of the four. It's just so well worked. Obviously, we'll get on Hayden Hackney and his part in the last 3 games and his introduction. I mean, since Leo took temporary charge. But yeah, that goal, in the words of Chris Reeve, our good old friend from Toronto City, really got me going, Nathan. It was superb. And yeah, I mean, there's 2 more to talk about, so let's discuss them.
Yeah, and it was those 2 again combining for the rest of the goals in this game. Ryan Giles this time opts to go inside, drives through the middle of the pitch and tries to play a ball through to Chuba. It takes a slight deflection, which sort of ruins it a little bit because it takes the assist off Giles's tally, which is rather unfortunate because the ball's intended to go to Chuba. It's just a slight deflection that takes it off its path. But Chuba does really well, checks his run and gets back onto the end of it. And a really, really good finish on his left foot across goal. And Boro 3-0 up. Chuba wheels away to the other side of the pitch this time. He's doing laps of the Riverside and he was on a hat-trick. The slight down part of the Wigan game was conceding. Gets rid of a clean sheet for Zach Steffen and the rest of that back 4, which is unfortunate. The ball comes in from across off Wigan's right-hand side and there's a slight mix-up in the Boro back line. Tommy Smith tucks in to sort of cover Dale Fry and it sails over Tommy Smith's head, and at the back post is Thelo Asgard, who neatly slots in on the volley with his right foot. Good finish, but just a bit of a defensive lapse of concentration from Boro there. And then in the final minute of the game, Boro make it 4-1 to the good with them 2 again, Ryan Giles and Chuba Akpom. Ryan Giles from the left-hand side, driving forward, plays a neat 1-2 and takes 1 touch out his feet, crosses that ball in. And initially, I thought that this ball just hits Chuba Akpom and goes into the goal. However, this is not the case. Chuba does really well to adjust himself because I think he's slightly running ahead of the ball at this point. But he sort of bends that right leg back and gets a neat touch on the ball, kicks it into the ground and gets his hat-trick. And I'm pretty sure that that was the loudest cheer of the day, although the goal in the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter because the game was already well finished by that point. It was for Chuba and his hat-trick, the first Middlesbrough player to get a hat-trick since Patrick Bamford against Leeds a few years ago under Tony Pulis. So very pleased for Chuba, very pleased for Ryan Giles, very pleased for the side, and very pleased for a sold-out Riverside to go home happy on Boxing Day with 3 points.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goal as well, obviously it still remains the case, but I think that was the goal that took Ryan Giles to the top of the championship assisters and also stuck Chuba Akpom at the top of the list for the championship top goal scorers. And as you say, the loudest cheer of the day for a man that is almost a cult figure at the moment. He is the metaphorical train has stopped at various grounds in the championship already this season, and it was nice to have a somewhat of a homecoming stop for a full Riverside Stadium to jump on board. I just adore the bloke, to be honest with you, Nathan. He obviously, after his hat-trick, he gives another interview with BBC Tees and all the club media. And he admitted after the game that prior to Ryan Giles' arrival at the club, he actually watched videos of the types of crosses that Ryan Giles put into the box. And okay, the timeline may be somewhat muddled, I guess, because at this point, when Ryan Giles arrived, Chuba Akpom actually wasn't a part of Middlesbrough's plans. So if that is the case, and he's been watching crosses from Ryan Giles prior to being reintroduced into the squad, it makes it all the more impressive. And he really is just such a likable guy. I'm sure a lot of people have listened to his interviews, and he mentions his son being at the stadium on Boxing Day and seeing his dad score a hat-trick and almost be adored by a full Riverside stadium. Well, in fact, I say almost. In fact, he is adored by the full Riverside stadium. And to be honest, after the hat-trick, I'm sure even some of the Wigan fans were starting to think, well, I mean, what a great guy he is. Although, no, they probably weren't, actually. They were probably cursing him for scoring a hat-trick past them. But yes, just fantastic, really. And Ryan Giles, just a word on him. Obviously, we've spoken about the top scorer in the league, but the top assister, Ryan Giles. I'm going to make a bold statement here, Nathan, and say that I truly believe with my chest, and I mean, we've seen some of the statements with my chest this season. I was adamant that Rodrigo Muniz was going to be the man for Middlesbrough, and he can't even seem to get in the team at the moment. But I truly believe that Ryan Giles is top 5 and potentially even higher of the best crossers in the Football League. In fact, not the Football League, the English football pyramid, in terms of Reece James, Trent, Kevin De Bruyne. I think he's up there. His crossing and delivery is that good, Nathan.
His left foot is certainly up there. I don't even think it's arguable for the Championship. His left foot's outrageous for this level. His crossing, it's by far his best attribute. Every single cross is pretty much on the money, and we are definitely reaping the rewards from it as well, especially Chuba Akpom in this particular game. But yeah, Boro outstanding on Boxing Day. I did see something about Boro's record on Boxing Day, and I can't remember the last time that we did lose on Boxing Day, although I do know when it was. It was under Tony Pulis against Sheffield Wednesday in 2017. So, I mean, I've completely wiped that one from my memory. I must have done.
I'm going to say I think Adam Reach scored that day.
He will have done, because he always scores when he was at the Riverside with Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah. But, yeah, I think Boro's record on Boxing Day is outstanding, and it's really good as well to be a fan of your team on Boxing Day and to see them win, and to see them win so convincingly that Boro did do this past Boxing Day was fantastic to see, and set us in good stead for a trip to third in the table. Blackburn Rovers away at Ewood Park on the 29th of December. This one was probably going to be our most difficult test of the 3 games in this Christmas week, going away to a side that have been a bit of a tough nut to crack this season in terms of what you're going to get from them. They can either wipe the floor with you 3-0 or quite comfortably roll over for you and get beat 3-0. They're still yet to draw a game this season and have found themselves pretty much they win or lose, and that's just their sort of way at this moment in time. The previous game at the Riverside was under Leo Perkovic. Blackburn did run out 2-1 winners that day. Of course, Sam Gallagher scored a brace that day, and Duncan Watmore got the goal for Middlesbrough. But the main talking point ahead of this one was whether it was going to be the typical 1-0 Blackburn win at Ewood with a Sam Gallagher goal. However, that wasn't to be the case, as we do now know. Before the game, there was 2 changes to the side that beat Wigan on Boxing Day. Riley McGree and our man, the Tree, came into the side with Duncan Watmore and Isaiah Jones dropping out. So a change of shape for Boro in this one. Marcus Force moving out to that right-hand side, where Isaiah Jones has been accommodating that spot so far under Michael Carrick. And Duncan Watmore dropping out from that left-hand side role for Riley McGree, who, of course, has been accommodating that role pretty stably so far under Michael Carrick. So going into this one, in the early stages, again, bit of a slow start from both sides until all of a sudden John Buckley picks up the ball in his own half and lofts a ball over Boro's back four, and Ryan Hedges' first touch is 10 yards ahead of Darragh Lenihan and the Middlesbrough back four. The 5,000 fans in the away end are all calling for offside. The linesman doesn't give it. Ryan Hedges goes through. Darragh Lenihan does get back in position, but Ryan Hedges' left-footed shot goes through the legs of Darragh Lenihan. Wrong foot sacks Stefan. Stefan stands there. The ball rolls into the far corner, and within the first 10 minutes, Boro 1-0 down through a decision that was possibly contentious. However, now on reflection and seeing replays that still haven't shown the full picture, I do think that Ryan Hedges is onside and the linesman has got the call right. What did you make of the first goal, Chris?
Yeah, like you say, I'm yet to see an angle which confirms, I guess, what everyone thought. I think because of the fact, as you say, by the time Hedges has took his first touch from the pass, he's got a 10-yard head start on Darragh Lenihan. Everyone thought, well, there's just no way that, I mean, obviously we'll get on to both him and Fry, I guess, after the Birmingham game, but the pair of them have been so solid as of late under Michael Carrick that you almost thought, well, there's no way that they would have allowed that to happen almost. But yeah, I think it's actually a lot closer than what the sort of TV angles showed it as. As I say, I can't for definite say yes or no yet, because I'm still yet to see an angle which would prove either way. But yeah, it certainly looks closer when you watch it back than sort of the way it unfolded, I guess. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, at that point when he goes through and slots it past Stefan, I did think, well, here we go again at Ewood Park. An early goal for the home side, and it's just going to be one of those miserable days at Blackburn that we've had so many of over the last few years. But yeah, after the goal, we actually grew into the game, and it almost sort of woke us up a little bit. Hayden Hackney hits the crossbar with a good effort. I think it takes a deflection, loops over Kaminsky, and then hits the bar. And at that point in the game, it almost sparked us into action even more. We really started, playing like we have been doing under Michael Carrick. And then from half time, perhaps the quickest, I mean, it must have been a matter of seconds after half time, we find ourselves on level terms. And the man that I think most Middlesbrough fans would admit that they were wanting off at half-time proves everyone wrong from a adjusted position, gets us on level terms. And of course, I'm talking about Marcus Force getting his goal, his second goal in as many games from the right wing, Nathan.
Yeah, a strange first half with Crooks playing as that sort of number 9, and Marcus Forss playing off the right. And many weren't pleased with those two and their performances in that first half. But as you say, Chris, within a matter of moments in that second half, those two combine and Boro are back on level terms. A great ball from, I think it was Stefan in this instance, to Boro's right-hand side, and Forss is there to flick into the middle of the park where Tuba picks up a good position in that number 10 role, just off John Buckley. He drives forward and knocks it out to Crooks, who's drifted wide, and Crooks does really well to sort of hold up the play a little bit for players to get into the box and make runs. And Forss continues his run from the halfway line after heading it into Tuba, and Crooks plays a good ball down the side, and you're sort of thinking, well, cross it then to from Forss, but instead he decides to blast one in at the near post through Kaminski, and Boro back on level terms. And then I feel that the next moment of the game is probably the largest talking point. Blackburn fans will say that this is the moment that the game truly did change in Middlesbrough's favour. Although from pretty much minute 1 of that second half, I did feel that if there was going to be one side to go on and win the game, it would be Middlesbrough. Of course, we are talking about the red card to John Buckley, so we'll run through the incident. A ball's played through the middle of the pitch from Boro. McGree has stepped over the ball and it's going towards Crooks. Dom Hyam steps up and wins it. Crooks goes in late, flicks Hyam's ankle. Hyam goes down. Crooks is then booked by the referee. And as this is all going on, Riley McGree and John Buckley are having a little bit of a conversation, argument, ding-dong, whatever you want to call it. And it's seen on the replays that McGree's very, very clever in this sense that as he's arguing with Buckley and giving him the ball back, he walks past him and gives him a slight elbow in the back that sort of incites Buckley to then kind of playfully throw the ball off the back of Riley McGree's head and immediately back into his arms. Now, as a fan watching that from home, had you seen that replay in real time, you'd probably think nothing of it really. And as a person in the stands, as I was on when was this, Wednesday or Thursday at Ewood Park, I wasn't even paying attention because I was expecting Blackburn to just take a free kick and get the game rolling again. But to then hear the crowd erupt as the referee shows a red card, I mean, in the stand, I didn't know if it was for a Middlesbrough player or a Blackburn player. I didn't have a clue. But it was for John Buckley for throwing the ball at McGree's head. A very silly red card to be shown. But I suppose that he can only blame himself, can't he, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. And the Middlesbrough fan, of course, that I am, makes me want to find it hilarious. And I did, because it was just such a nothing incident, as you say. You know, there wasn't any real intent from Buckley to like knock Riley McGree out with the ball off the back of his head. It is literally a case of throwing it off, playing a slight 1-2 was a bit of a joke off the back of McGree's head. But yeah, I see him walking down the tunnel, and I said to my dad, obviously at this point we're fortunate enough to have seen the replay, and I just couldn't believe it. He was saying, well, his point of view at the time was, well, it's violent conduct. And okay, yes, now we've seen the rules and it turns out that he was correct. I was saying it can't be violent conduct. That's a 3-game ban. It's not violent in a sense. It, like you say, you described it as playful, and that is almost what it was. It was like, I did find it quite funny, and then to see him sent off, I mean, yes, okay, it's by the letter of the law, and it's the correct decision. But if I'm a Middlesbrough fan and it happens the other way around, you'd be absolutely furious, wouldn't you? I mean, I think Blackburn posted a TikTok actually from their most recent game, and I want to say they played Cardiff.
Yeah,
I might be wrong. And one of the Cardiff players throws the ball at Hedges and it hits him on the leg. Exactly the same thing, but it doesn't hit him on the head as what happened with McGree and Buckley. And obviously nothing's happened, and they're poking fun at the fact it's the exact same incident, but nothing's done. And I mean, the fact that obviously now we know that the appeal got rejected as well. Yes, it's the correct decision, but I mean, it's a bit of a mockery, really, isn't it? I don't think Buckley's trying to kill McGree, but I mean, it's stupid, and I'm sure it's something he'll never do again.
Yeah, it will be. And a lot of players that have had bits of fun in the past where they do that to opposition players will be feeling probably quite lucky that they haven't been caught doing it, and also thinking that they won't be doing it again because they don't want to get sent off in a 3-game ban. So, yeah, unfortunate for Blackburn in that sense. But as a Middlesbrough fan, in that away end, knowing that Blackburn were then down to 10 men and we were already on top in the game, I was thinking, we've got to get at these now and get that goal that gets us ahead. And, I mean, it didn't take very long, did it? Boro got to that second goal from the man that I suppose got John Buckley sent off, Riley McGree. Good work down that left-hand side. This time, Crooks down the left instead of the right has the ball, knocks it into Hayden Hackney. Hayden Hackney arrows a ball on top of Marcus Force's head on the other side of the pitch. And a word on this assist from Marcus Force, because in this usual sense, I think that a player would just try and sort of flick a header back across goal and hope that someone's making a run into an area to win a flick on. But no, he knows where Riley McGree is coming in to the box and sort of cushions a header down to him. And it's a great finish from McGree on his weaker right foot to just side foot the ball into the top corner of Thomas Kaminski's net. And yeah, it was incredible in that away end. 5,000 fans that have travelled. And yeah, it was joyous scenes to go 2-1 up, Boro winning at Ewood, a place where we struggle to win. The last time we did win, Britta Sombalonga was on the score sheet after an Ashley Fletcher deflected effort, and John Obi Mikel was playing in midfield that day. So it shows how long ago it was. But yeah, from then on, really, it was plain sailing for the rest of the game. I can't really remember Blackburn having many efforts on the Middlesbrough goal in that second half, if at all any. There was a free kick that has just come to mind, Brereton Diaz striking it low and Stefan caught it in his grasp. But apart from that, it was pretty plain sailing. One moment that I did feel could have been capitalised on was Boro's 3v2 situation. Watmore breaking through. A great ball from Alex Mowat this time. And Watmore's on his way. He squares it across to Crooks, who tries to feed it into that far post with the outside of his right foot. Kaminski saved. Goes back to Watmore, and I'm thinking, just shoot. Instead, he opts to pass it to Chuba. Chuba's sort of in a situation here where he now has to get the ball under control with Blackburn players retreating and trying to tackle him, and he couldn't get his effort away with good enough conviction. So apart from that chance in the second half, after the second goal, it was pretty quiet, really. Not a lot went on, but the main part was Boro got 3 points at Blackburn, and for the first time this season, flew into the top 6.
Yeah, we did. And it was I think that'll be a moment that, regardless of how this season pans out, a lot of fans will look back on this little run of games really with a lot of good memories. And of course, 3 wins, 9 points. And I mean, I'm sure there's the stats out there which I don't have at the moment, but I can't remember a period where we done the Christmas period with 3 wins. I know obviously we had a positive run of games around that time under Chris Wilder, but I don't think we went 3 games with 3 wins. I might be wrong. I might be making myself look silly, but certainly the way things panned out with that little man, I don't even want to think about it, to be honest. But yeah, just a few talking points that I wanted to touch on from the Blackburn game. Firstly, Marcus Force's mum in the crowd recording Riley McGree's goal. Exceptional. How she hasn't managed to throw her phone as McGree connects and her son gets an assist following his goal is, I mean, incredible in itself. But yeah, a huge fair play because we shared it on Twitter, and it was just a great angle. I think just the fact that, as you say, Marcus Force opts to cushion a header back into McGree is brilliant. But then the fact that you actually remember he did the same at Norwich away with a header again, I mean, it's becoming quite a weapon in itself, Marcus Force's forehead. And not even in a goal scoring sense, just in terms of assisting. So I'm not sure what the other stats. Obviously, Ryan Giles is at the top of the assist list, but in terms of assist by head, I'm sure Marcus Force must be near the top of that list. And in terms of substitutions as well, game management, just a shout out to Alex Mowat. I know obviously he come on against Wigan at half time, but for a player that hasn't featured largely at all since Michael Carrick took charge, I thought he did nothing that, massively stood out, but for the job he did do of keeping the ball and retaining possession and just being a calming presence really for when we needed it, I thought his 2 introductions in those 2 games were really important points. Obviously, filling in for Johnny Howson, who's so important to the way that Middlesbrough play, against Wigan, and then the Blackburn game, a slightly different role in terms of just, as I say, calming things down, keeping the ball, and just making sure that we don't rush things. And I think that's one major positive that we've seen under Michael Carrick. We don't panic. We went behind against Blackburn. We still don't panic. We find our feet in games, start playing the way that we have done, and obviously we're getting the rewards for that at the moment. And yeah, we saw with that substitution how beneficial that was. And you mentioned him just briefly there. I thought the timing that Duncan Watmore was introduced was perfect, really. Although, as you mentioned again, Blackburn never really threatened with a chance per se, but just when you can feel it as a football fan when the game's just starting to turn a little bit, and especially away from home, the home supporters are, trying to do everything they can to basically suck the ball into the goal. And with the introduction of Duncan Watmore when he come on, I just thought it released a little bit of pressure, and we know what Duncan Watmore can do. His running power is phenomenal, and it just basically stopped that feeling in the bottom of your stomach where you think, oh God, it's coming any minute now, and they're going to nick a cross in, or it's going to hit off someone's arse and they'll nick a point off us when they don't deserve. And yeah, Duncan Watmore was fantastic at just keeping the ball and putting, obviously, the Blackburn backline under pressure and not allowing them to hit their two front men, which they like to do, obviously, big targets with Brereton Diaz and Gallagher, of course. So yeah, just two substitutions that I felt deserved a little bit of credit, because at the moment we are seeing, very limited changes from the start of games, but in terms of introductions and Carrick getting his substitution timing well and at the correct moment, I think he's doing that extremely well at the moment. So fair play to the substitutions. And yeah, Alex Mowat, although not the sort of long range shooting get forward midfielder that I kind of guess I thought we were signing, that I'd seen at Barnsley. He does one thing very well in a Middlesbrough shirt, and that's just keep the ball. So yeah, credit to those two, Nathan.
Yeah, I felt especially in that Blackburn game, those two did stand out massively. Alex Mowat was pretty much first to every loose ball that did go stray when he did come on at Blackburn. That's what did stand out for me. Stood in that away end. And then, as you say, the timing of the Watmore substitution was fantastic. One sort of moment in particular late on in that Blackburn game was Watmore down that right-hand side, picking up a loose ball, driving forward down the right-hand side and just winning us I can't even remember if it was a foul or a corner. It may have been a corner.
Yeah,
and winning set pieces for Boro, just to run the clock down a little bit in moments where we just kind of need to see the win out, and we did just that. Just a quick word on ex-Middlesbrough player that did play in that game at Ewood Park, Daniel Ayala. Surprising to see him playing over the Christmas period, considering he usually likes 3 months out. I think that may have something to do with his Blackburn contracts being up in the summer, that he needs to pull his finger out and play some games to earn himself a new one. But I thought he looked okay. I think his sort of ovation from the Middlesbrough fans was more than justified, with a few murmurs of boos and things like that. And I think he probably thrives off that as well. We know what he's like, Daniel Ayala. He loves a little bit of a battle and a shove and push match. So I think he'll have thrived off that, and he won't have really cared for the boos anyway. But just a nice little mention for Ayala there, playing over the Christmas period for what must be the first time in something like 10 years.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. As you say, it was always the same injury, I seem to remember as well, that he just pick up, and not for 1 minute are we suggesting that it was a purposeful missing of the games. But yeah, it did seem convenient that it was always around about this period where he would disappear. But yeah, I felt, actually, I did hear about a few boos, and I don't think it was a large proportion of that away following. But yeah, as you say, I always liked Daniel Ayala, and obviously a big part of what was our last really successful period as a club. So yeah, a little bit disappointing to hear of a few boos, but as you say, I'm sure it would have actually, he probably quite enjoyed it deep down.
Yeah, he probably did. But one player that may have enjoyed a little bit more of the ovation was George Friend, which we'll get onto that game now, which of course was Birmingham City away at St Andrews yesterday afternoon. We are filming this the day after, to just give everyone that insight. But yeah, Boro unchanged from Blackburn going into this one. Marcus Force off the right, and the big tree leading the line for the second game in a row. A first half that was relatively quiet in terms of chances, but Boro on top as per usual. Can't really remember many chances at the other end of St Andrews that went for us yesterday. Very quiet in that sense. The only real one that I do remember in the full first half was Lucas Jukovic firing a shot from what must have been 30 yards to try and lob Zach Steffen on the half volley. But apart from that, quite a quiet first half. I felt that Marcus Force was probably one of our most dangerous players in that first half because of the number of times that we tried to go down the right, but he can be slightly frustrating in his final ball into the box from that right-hand side. But from what I can gather from reading social media after the game, there was quite the clamour at half-time for changes to be made. A few mentions of Force, a few mentions of Matt Crooks.
A lot of Matt Crooks. A lot of mentions, Nathan.
Yeah, so I think many people will have been eating the words in the second half. Immediately after half-time, Boro did have a chance, a great ball over the top by Darragh Lenihan into the path of Marcus Force, drifting inside from that right-hand side. And, I mean, his first touch was incredible, takes him forward and central. But his finish, yes, he tests John Ruddy, but Ruddy makes that save, keeps us at 0-0. And you didn't really know where the game would go from then, because Birmingham did have a corner that, I mean, Bielik, I still don't know how he's missed. Watching that corner again, it's a short corner into Hannibal Meshbury. Hannibal crosses that ball into the box, and Matt Crooks does lose Christian Bielik. Bielik is at the near post all by himself, free header, and he, powers it wide. Couldn't really believe that he missed. It was a sitter for a player of his ability, and a player of his ability in the air especially. But Boro will count the lucky stars on that one. And I mean, those that were clamouring for the tree and a change at half time will have been eating the words, as Boro down the right hand side were decent, with Force, Smith and Howson all playing a part in Boro's opener. Smith knocks it back into Johnny Howson, an incredible ball to the back post, and there is the tree to nod in. Sort of George Friend loses the tree at the back post. Nice one, George. Little winky face there for you. And yeah, the tree wheels away to the travelling fans in the corner of St Andrews, and Boro find themselves 1-0 up. What did you make about the opening stages to the second half and that goal then, Chris?
Yeah, as you say, again, I think to begin with, people were eating humble pie, but almost justifiably, because I do think in the first half, I think I saw one tweet which did make me laugh, because he quoted it afterwards and sort of poked fun at it. But he said this Force and Crooks experiment needs to be sort of cancelled at halftime. And obviously we saw what happened in the second half. But yeah, it did almost feel after the Blackburn game that, you know, we know what Michael Carrick's about now. If his team wins, unless there is changes that have to be made, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the same team the following game. And you can see that it's still very much almost both players are trying to adapt to the roles, and because they are both good players, there's moments in games where they're having success, but other moments in games where you're thinking, "Oh, this really doesn't look like the way it's supposed to." But yeah, one thing we do know about Matt Crooks is that a lot of the time, if he's in the box, he'll find himself in a position where he's going to get a chance at goal. And a lot of the time as well, in fairness to him, he seems to pop up with a goal and score those chances. And I think I've said it in a previous podcast, and we joked about it on Twitter last night with a little graphic displaying the big tree on Fellaini. He is, or has, I should say, the same skill set of Marouane Fellaini in that by trade, he is a centre midfielder which arrives in the box late, but also when you're after a goal, he can do a job as a striker. And he seems to just have a knack of, as I say, finding himself in the right place at the right time. And, although some people might not recognise it, it definitely is a skill being able to do that because, Crooks has obviously got his height as an advantage, but, some of the finishes that we've seen since his arrival at Middlesbrough, I mean, they are really taking like an absolute poacher, I guess you could call it. So yeah, a Beckham-esque ball in by Howson and the trees there just head it in at the back post. I think George Friend obviously playing on the right-hand side of Birmingham's back line, or the right-hand side of the two centre-halves, definitely didn't help his cause. But we don't want to be too harsh on George. But yeah, a good header, powered into the back of the net. And then just minutes later, of course, he gets his second. And I'm sorry to bring it up, George. Again, I'm not sure you'll be listening back. But it's a criminal first touch by him on his weaker side. He tries to take a touch out of the sky with his right foot. And it's effectively just a through ball at Crooks, just to dink it over his leg and go one-on-one with John Ruddy. And again, as I say, a striker's finish. He just slots the ball past Ruddy in and wheels away towards that strong away following. Yeah, it's a moment that I don't think George Friend will ever want to watch back.
No, I don't think it will be. It sort of comes from nothing as well. Ryan Giles just sort of hikes a ball up the line to get it away from danger. And yeah, George, his touch isn't the best, but credit to Matt Crooks for chasing and putting him under pressure and winning that ball off him. Flicks the ball over George Friend, takes one touch to sort of steady himself. Tuba's running alongside, and I'm wondering, is he going to sort of slot Tuba in? But no, as a true striker would do, he's taking it by himself and he slots it past John Ruddy and into that far corner, wheels away with his 6th goal of the season. And yeah, it did feel comfortable at that point of the game. Boro were having a few more chances, 2-0 to the good as well. It did feel all a little bit comfortable, which doesn't usually fill me with too much sort of good feeling as a Middlesbrough fan. I don't like it when I feel comfortable because it usually means that something's about to go wrong. And Boro a little bit with the fans teasing us as we go and concede through Tahith Chong. A goal that I think we sort of bring upon ourselves a little bit. Started letting Birmingham back into the game a little bit, and Troy Deeney gets played down that right-hand side, and the ball to him isn't great. He has to sort of readjust his movement to get to it and then dig out a cross. And he does dig that cross out to the back post. Austin Trusty rises highest above Johnny Howson and Tommy Smith at that back post. Darragh Lenihan had committed earlier on in this passage of play to, I think it may have been Jonathan Lecco, who did play the ball to Troy Deeney. He did commit and was trying to get back onto the line. He did get back onto the line, but the header from Trusty is back across goal to Tahith Chong. So Lenihan can't get there as he's retreated too far back. Yeah, from then on, I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit panicky from me. I did travel to Birmingham, which it's the first time I've been there, and it is. I don't think it's the proper St Andrews experience, considering how derelict it looks.
Yeah.
But yeah, not the nicest ground to go to at this moment in time. But anyway, that's beside the point. Yeah, 2-1 up now, panicking a little bit. But Boro, in very untypical Boro fashion, relieved the pressure once again with, I mean, a moment of magic from two players in particular. It's that front two. The tree does really, really well in this particular moment. Mark Bowler, who we haven't seen for a long time, came onto the pitch in a strange role, playing as that left-sided attacking midfielder that Riley McGree would usually pick up in that role. Wins a header to clear us away from danger, and the tree does really, really well to bundle himself up the pitch, flicking the ball along with him, flicks it past, I think it was Trusty, and he drags two defenders out to that right-hand side, creating a load of space in the middle of the pitch. Tuba is busting a gut to get alongside him. Crux's ball is sublime, straight into the path of Tuba. And as Tuba's running through, centre of the goal, 18 yards out with only John Ruddy to beat, I'm thinking, what on earth is he going to do here? And what he did do was the thing that I least expected him to do, which was take it round John Ruddy on his right foot, despite George Friend covering that side. And Tuba gets round Ruddy, bodies George Friend out the way, and sort of just p-rolls a shot into the near corner. As the ball's rolling towards goal, from the view that I had, I didn't want to jump up and celebrate until I actually saw the ball hit the net, because I didn't know if it was in or if it was rolling wide. But it rolled into that bottom corner. Boro were 3-1 to the good. The train stops at St Andrews. He stops in front of the away end. And what did really, really get me going was the celebration. Now, for those that follow the page on Twitter, you will have seen Chris posted a rumour from various sort of sources, various clubs. Daily Mail journalist on Tuba Akpom, linking him to a number of Premier League sides. Crystal Palace and Southampton were certainly two, and Everton, as you say there, Chris. The three sides that were mentioned in this link. Now, Tuba scores this goal, wheels away to that away end, stands, arms outstretched, shrugs his shoulders, and grabs that badge. And that is exactly what we as fans love to see. We love Chuba. Hopefully Chuba loves Boro. I really do think he does. Sign the contract, Chuba. Get the contract out. Give him whatever he wants. He is the man. He is Chuba Amechi-Akpom. He is the top goal scorer in the Championship. He's out on his own, isn't he, that man?
He is. I mean, it's difficult to even come up with words at this stage to describe our feelings, my personal feelings towards the top goal scorer in the Championship, as you say. I know there was a lot of Middlesbrough fans absolutely adamant that we must spend 15 to 20 million on a player that's currently second in the goal scoring rankings. But I mean, did we ever really need to when we had a metaphorical train just waiting at Rockcliffe? Just needing a little bit of love. That's all he needed. A little bit of love, a little bit of belief. And I mean, he's been there waiting for his chance. And now, I mean, probably the most consistent train in the UK at the moment. He's just fantastic, isn't he? And as you say, Nathan, I don't know where or at what stage contract negotiations are at with him in terms of, I think we do have another year, but just get it done. Whoever's in charge, Neil Bowser, Kieran Scott, just get that piece of paper typed up. I'm sure they don't even do it themselves. In fact, they definitely don't. But just the lawyers, the admin people, I don't know, just make sure it's done soon, because it's crazy. And of course, we've covered it. The story of him being told that he was surplus to requirements to the stage we're at now. But you think in terms of what the top goal scorer in the Championship over the past 5 seasons in January, what they would have been valued at, it's pretty much £50 million minimum, depending on contract situation. And I just look at Akpom now, and I think if someone even offered us 15 million, and it sounds ridiculous, I'd say no, point blank. I wouldn't want it. He's that integral in that newfound role that Michael Carrick's put him in. Everything changes if he goes. And although, you know, the phrase that was used was monitoring Chuba Akpom, which I'm sure a lot of clubs are because of the form he's in. You know, I just think it's not at that stage yet, but if it got to the stage of a bid coming in, I mean, I'm saying regardless of if it was silly money, I'm sure most fans would probably think 15, 20 million would be silly money. And it would be, but he's got to stay. He's got to have a new contract, and he's got to have the freedom of Middlesbrough relatively soon, to be honest. You know, he's at the 13 goal mark in the league. If he hits 20, I mean, he could be he could be at a stage where he gets Palmos for free. He gets free entry into Flares all nights that it is open. I'm not sure Chuba's the type to go to Empire, to be honest. Just
No,
anyone,
possibly
really. I'm just naming places, but I think, to be honest, Chuba's into his, you know, early 2000s R&B. Not that it's going on in Flares, I must say, but early 2000s, a bit of throwback music. I bet Chuba's into. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure. I think we saw earlier on this season that him and Rodrigo Muniz have got a bit of moves about the pair of them, so he can. I mean, I was going to say something now. I was going to say the word that begins with a P in the Championship that you simply just can't say until it's done and dusted. I was going to say that he could have access to wherever he wanted in Middlesbrough once that's done. But no, in fact, if he hits 20 goals and ends the curse of the 20-goal a season striker that Middlesbrough have been craving for so long, just give him the keys to the town. Let him do what he wants. I think I need to shut up about him, to be honest, because he'll probably sort of file a restraining order.
No, he's unbelievable. And I'd seen yesterday as well that his dad was in the away end at St Andrews, which, I mean, that just must be fantastic to have a full sort of away contingent, 2,000 fans in that away end chanting your son's name in unison at full time. I mean, yeah, he's been sublime throughout this season. I think what should be mentioned as well was that in the last few games, particularly Blackburn and Birmingham, Chuba has been relatively quiet in those two games because teams are starting to realise that he is an integral part of how we play. And as a result, they're trying to come up with ways to try and combat him. But Michael Carrick did have this conversation yesterday on BBC Tees, and he said Chuba understands this and it helps others to have space and free up other players in this team. So Chuba's fulfilling a role for this side as well. He doesn't just care about his goals, which it's fantastic to have a player like that, a player that's so likeable. You can see that he's loved by all his teammates as well. I think that this squad at this moment in time, you can just tell has a real togetherness about it. And if you look back just 2 months ago, it looked so far different, and nothing has changed so far. Nothing in terms of the playing staff. The only change that has happened so far is Michael Carrick, Jonathan Woodgate, Aaron Danks, and that is about it. And the role that those three have had on these players in such a short period of time is nothing short of truly exceptional, really. I've just got some stats here. So we've played 10 games so far under Michael Carrick. But so seven of those games have been away from home, which that struck me as well, because I mean, to play 7 of the last 10 away from home is a bit strange as well. But 5 wins out of 7 away from home under Michael Carrick, only 2 defeats there, which were, of course, Preston in the opening game of his tenure, and also away to Burnley, who were flying high at the top of the league. 22 points in the first 10 games for Michael Carrick, the most since any Middlesbrough manager that they've had since Brian Robson in 1994. Outstanding, really, and long may it continue. Just to quickly outline where we are now finding ourselves in the league table. We are, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, because me and you were talking 2 months ago about relegation.
Crisis, wasn't it? I mean, it was crisis relegation talks, and well, it's certainly not that now. It's looking up the table in a different manner.
It is, and
so go on, Nathan, tell us, because we'll never get sick of hearing this, especially after our start to the season.
So the league table as it currently stands, we'll sort of leave the top 2 out of the conversation for the moment, because they are by far and away the top 2 sides in the division. But the playoff race, which by God, it is hotting up. If you just look at the state, and it is a state of this championship table, You have Blackburn, who Boro just beat, in third place on 42 points. Watford, who are in fourth place on 40 points. Then you find us, that Middlesbrough side that was sat in 22nd when Michael Carrick took over, that are now fifth in the championship table on 39 points. Those behind us on 39 are Millwall and Luton. And then on 38, you have Sunderland and West Brom, 37 Preston, and then a various number of teams on 36, 35, and 33, leading all the way down to 16th in the championship table. The league is remarkably tight at this stage in the season. We're more than halfway through this league campaign already, which, I mean, it doesn't feel like it is halfway through, but we are 26 games into this season. And somehow, after a truly shocking start to this campaign, Michael Carrick and Middlesbrough have clawed themselves back into a position just after halfway in a championship season where playoffs are a feasible ambition going in this second half of the season. I don't know quite how they've done it, but they have. And we're now in January, where the aim is to bring in 3 bodies I've heard mentioned, which would strengthen this squad, an already strong squad, by the way. I think that if you look at our bench yesterday, you'll find players with a wealth of championship experience that can quite comfortably fill in gaps that are left in the starting 11 currently. We have a number of young players that are coming through that are playing really well out on loan and also in this current Middlesbrough side. You look at Hayden Hackney breaking through into this side. You look at players out on loan, Josh Coburn, who's playing really well at Bristol Rovers, a part of a team that has scored the most in League One, and he's scoring pretty much week in, week out at this moment in time.
Yeah.
Fulfilling the name the Teesside Haaland in League One. You have Sol Bryn, who's earning plaudits in goal for Swindon Town in League Two, who played away at a promotion contender in Northampton Town last week, and he earned himself man of the match and his team a win. I think things are just looking up, Chris, and I don't know how in such a short space of time it's gone from all doom and gloom to looking very, very positive, but it has. But one thing that I should say is that discounting the next game, which of course is Brighton in the FA Cup, if you look at the next 3 in the league, I think this will really give us a chance to put down a marker on where we really are as a squad, because that next 3 is Millwall up at the Riverside on the 14th of January, a difficult side, a side that are below us in the league by 1 place and only on goal difference. A very good side that are well drilled, have a few standout players. Then comes probably the most remarkable test of the 3 games that I'm talking about, which is Sunderland on Sky Sports on a Sunday afternoon at 12 o'clock. A side that are performing remarkably well, find themselves only a point behind us, had found themselves above us up until the past game week. A side that have got one striker that has scored 9 in 11 this season, which is remarkable for a player that's just come up from League One, a player that we are after
as well.
Yeah, so you've got a player there that is in remarkable form in front of goal. You have Amad Diallo, who's playing really well on loan from Manchester United. Sunderland fans are adamant that he's the best player in the league at this moment in time. We'll have to wait and see. But that's going to be a remarkable test of character, as well as our ability on the pitch. And then you have Watford at home, who are currently sitting a place above us in the table, who are currently in an injury crisis with two midfielders that played yesterday. One's a right back and one was brought in as a free transfer last week. So you can see where they're at. João Pedro, who's their talisman, is out for 2 months. We'll see if they can sustain their position in this league table. A lot of their fans are feeling sort of negative about where they're going at this moment in time with the injury crisis, but they went to Norwich yesterday and pulled off a remarkable win against the odds, with 3 players going down injured in the game. So you have 3 sides there coming up in the league that are all around us in the table, all either a point above us, level with us, or 1 point behind us, that are all coming up in the next 3 weeks. And I think if you look at those sides and you pick up, I don't know, a safe points total that would probably be 5 minimum. If you pick up 5 there and go unbeaten in this spell of games, I think your promotion credentials are truly there or thereabouts, aren't they, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. Of course I knew Sunderland was coming up, but I think I'm just living in the moment, enjoying how well we're playing. I haven't even tried to get ahead of myself yet or look ahead. But I mean, yeah, 3 games come, of course, discounting the Brighton game just for the moment, but 3 league games coming up that, as you say, are really going to test our playoff/promotion credentials. I think I've got to be honest, the top 2 are gone for me now. I think they are promoted unless something really hideous happens, and I just can't see it. I've got to be honest. But that playoff race, as you say, is so open, and I think you'd be a brave man or brave woman to back against us at the moment, because Michael Carrick's got us playing a way that suits our players, and has found a way that doesn't require a 5 at the back. Thank God. So yeah, it really is an exciting time. You mentioned some of the players out on loan, and I mean the Teesside Haaland, he just scores goals for fun, doesn't he? So yeah, glad to see that he'll be staying at Bristol Rovers. Certainly from what Carrick said in the press and a few other journalist reports, seems like he will stay there, and I think that's best for his development. I'd rather him stay there and keep on scoring goals and then come back fresh next season. But actually, there was a player that I just wanted to talk about to tie in with the Birmingham game, to be honest, but we sort of got excited, and rightfully so, to be honest, and started looking ahead. We've still got the Brighton Cup game to talk about as well. But just before we started the podcast, I mentioned him. A free transfer, someone that I think we all thought would probably play about 10 games in total throughout the season. And I've got to be honest, against Barnsley earlier on this season in the Cup, really didn't impress me at all. Tommy Smith, he has come in under Leo Perkovic, retained his position under Michael Carrick, and he is the definition of just Mr. Consistent, really. And some people might say that's doing him a disjustice, the fact that he's one of them where the typical saying goes, he never drops below a 7. But in terms of his experience and age, it's just invaluable. And there was a moment yesterday that I really wanted to pinpoint, and we spoke about it. Just as Birmingham found themselves with a goal back and we were under pressure, more so actually than any point in the Blackburn game, I felt. Birmingham were causing us more problems. Jonathan Lecco had come off the bench and discovered that he could actually dribble with the ball. And Tommy Smith just went down. And I think I don't even think there was contact. I think he just went down, allowed the physios to come on the pitch, and just killed the game for a minute or two, killed Birmingham's momentum. And it's just that kind of gamesmanship and experience that I think is what, okay, we've got the stars, the goal scorers. Of course, we all know who they are at the moment. But it seems to be that perfect balance. And I'd throw Darragh Lenihan in with that as well at the moment, where the three of Tommy Smith, Dale Fry and Lenihan, of course, Giles bombs on, are so solid. And even Dale Fry, although his age may not be, as old as Lenihan or Smith, he's played in the Championship long enough where he's resolute, he's a good defender, he does his job, and very, very rarely, touch wood, makes the sort of simple mistakes that we seem to be making so many of under Chris Wilder. There were so many individual errors that were leading to goals. And of course, we still conceded a few goals over the last few games, but they just seem to be getting cut out. And you mentioned it as well, Nathan, when we spoke about it earlier. The moment where Tommy Smith, after managing to kill the momentum by going down, only a few minutes later, then kills another minute or two by taking about a total of 5 minutes just to take a throw in.
Yeah, it was outstanding. I mean, yeah, talk about killing a game off. And I mean, you can call it game management to be sort of a bit formal about it, but it's just being a bit of a shithouse, isn't it? And wasting time in them moments where your side under the cosh a little bit, and you need to just sort of gain a grip of the game again, steady everyone down and settle everyone down. And Tommy Smith did just that. Wasting time with the throwing was one of my best moments of the game, really. Pretended to be interested in throwing the ball in when he knew he was taking the yellow card every single day of the week. And just as the referee's blowing his whistle to sort of flag him and say, right, yellow card, you need to get on with it, he throws the ball away anyway, which then wastes another few seconds. And then the ball eventually gets back to Tommy Smith, spends another 20, 30 seconds or so with the ball in his hands. And do you want to know what? I think we ended up throwing it backwards and it ended up back at Zach Steffen's feet, and then we were all right again. So, yeah, remarkable from Tommy Smith. At times that you just need that little bit of experience and sort of streetwise behaviour on a football pitch to get you through. And he provides just that for Middlesbrough. Yeah, I think that Tommy Smith's a player that's been going under the radar a little bit for Middlesbrough in the last few weeks or so, because his performances have been pretty steady all the way through, really. And that's what he is. That's what he was brought in for, to be a steady Eddie, to be a body for this Middlesbrough side. But he's been a little bit more than that so far under Michael Carrick. He's sort of proven himself as a mainstay in Middlesbrough's back four so far under Carrick. And long may it continue, because he's playing really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I kind of threw in Darragh Lenihan's name there a little bit, just again. We won't go as in detail because, of course, we do need to talk about the Brighton game. But Lenihan and Fry at the moment, especially yesterday, around about the same time, where Tommy Smith decided he wanted to have a bit lie down on the pitch. A lot of long balls towards Troy Deeney, and the Lighthouse and Dangerous Dara just headed and kicked every way for a solid few minutes. So yeah, we don't want to miss anyone out because it's a well-oiled machine at the moment that just seems to be doing the right things. Nathan, it's always interesting, the cups for me, because I'm very much in the early rounds and I'll hold my hands up completely. I have very limited interest in it. And then as soon as we go and find ourselves at Old Trafford or beating Spurs in the cup, I'm absolutely loving every minute of it. And yeah, I take full responsibility for that. I understand that it is a bit, well, I guess some people are up for the cup, I guess you could call it that. And you've got to have them early round games. But yeah, Brighton come to the Riverside in the FA Cup. I just, because of the turnaround in the league, I don't necessarily think it's bad timing, but I almost just want to keep on playing games in the league and continue the momentum. But what are your initial thoughts on that? Because it probably will give Michael Carrick the opportunity to give a few players some minutes that haven't had them as of late, I imagine. But given that Michael Carrick's very much keeping his team fairly similar when they win games, that might not be the case. So, yeah, how do you view Brighton? And are you very much like me that actually almost a fair weather cup fan, I guess I'd call myself?
It usually depends on the draw, whether I am sort of up for it or whether I'm not. And Brighton at home does not fill me with any kind of positivity at all. Mainly because it's at home, which I don't really find that very exciting in the early rounds of the cup, unless you get a lower league side at home where it's their big day out and they can possibly upset you. I don't think it's very interesting. And for a side like Brighton that are in the Premier League, that in no danger of going down, but in no way, shape or form should be threatening the Europa League places, this should be a game that they should really be trying to attack and make the most of from their point of view. I thought that would be the same with them in the Carabao Cup, where they did have Charlton Athletic in the quarterfinals, but they crashed out in the quarterfinals to a side that are 2 leagues below them. So perhaps they're not taking it or taking cup competitions completely seriously, which I feel that they probably should do. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see the way in which they line up. Of course, they are playing this evening. They are playing at Everton this evening in the Premier League, which will be a difficult game at Goodison Park, which means that Boro have a day extra, I suppose, on them. And also, they do have to travel the length of the country in January. So hopefully a few of their players aren't really up for it. But when the draw was first made, which was a good month or so ago now, I really wasn't up for it because I felt that they were really going to attack this tie, which they still might. They might do. They might play all the big guns. One player that I wouldn't be too surprised to see is Alexis McAllister, who hasn't been featuring for Brighton since, of course, he was playing in the World Cup final a few weeks ago, and he's probably been on the booze for weeks on end in Buenos Aires.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, and rightfully so, because he was remarkable in the World Cup for Argentina. But yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised to see him feature in this game because he is back with Brighton now. I think he came back yesterday, so therefore he probably won't feature for them tonight. So he may get some minutes against us, which would be good to see. Good to see a World Cup winner that's performed really well for Brighton. For Argentina in the World Cup, but also for Brighton in the league. He has been good for them. So that'll be good to see. But of course, they've got a lot of players that they've brought in from abroad that many of us sort of fair weather football fans that only really watch English football won't have ever heard of. And then they appear on Match of the Day and you think, oh, bloody hell, he looks like a good player. They brought in a lot of players like that. You look at players like Mitoma, who I hadn't even heard of up until this season, and watching him on Match of the Day playing for Brighton, and he looks like a world beater. I'm not sure he'd play, but they do have a lad up front that did make me feel sort of. I thought he'd play really well for Brighton this season, but he hasn't really featured at all. Called Dennis Undav. He played in the Belgian Pro League last season. I can't pronounce the side that won it. They're called Royal Union Saint Gillo or something like that. Anyway, he scored something like 34 in 32 games, and I thought, well, he'll surely make an impression on the Premier League, but it hasn't worked out that way. But I'd guess that in games like the early rounds of the FA Cup, this would be his type of game to play, as well as a young lad up front that scored against Arsenal the other day called Ferguson. I think he'll probably get some minutes for them. But in terms of Middlesbrough, I think we'll see a few changes to the side to give a few players some rest. I think we'll probably see Mark Bowler and Paddy McNair. As Michael Carrick did say yesterday, it was good to see them feature in the final minutes at Birmingham. I think those two will play. I think there is possibility for Liam Roberts to get a run out in goal, which I'd quite like to see. Was relatively impressed with Roberts in the early stages of the season when Stefan was carrying a bit of an injury.
I
but
think
yeah,
probably, sorry to interrupt, Nathan, I think it'll also be an opportunity for Isaiah Jones to perhaps come back into the team. Obviously, he's dropped out in the last two games. I wouldn't say has, excuse me, hit the heights of perhaps what everyone expected him to this season off the back of obviously such a good period under Chris Wilder last season. And obviously he's found himself out the team, so he'll want to impress. And then, of course, we also have the likes of Anthony Dijksteel, who's suffering with a bit of a knock at the moment, but may well have returned by then. At least that would probably do him a lot of favours because it seems like forever since he played a game for Middlesbrough. And also, I'm not sure the current update on Matt Clark and Darnell Fisher. I think I'd seen a few mentions of those two perhaps returning to light training recently. So potentially they may feature in the squad. But yeah, as you say, a few of the sort of fringe players and even the likes of Paddy McNair, who has been, so consistently in the team for so many years, now finds himself out the team and will want to impress Michael Carrick and try and worm a way back into the team.
Yeah, well, I look forward to the road to Wembley starting now with a Matthew Hoppy hat-trick on Saturday afternoon.
Yes, we forget the Hopmeister.
The Hopmeister General. I think this could be his game.
We've spoken about substitutions having an impact. I mean, I'm disgusted in the pair of us that we didn't actually mention his cameo against Wigan on Boxing Day. And of course, the bleach blonde buzz cut is gone. He now does have a moustache and a mullet. taking inspiration from Riley McGree, which you'll all know that I absolutely loved. Riley McGree sporting before he headed off to the World Cup. He's sort of gone a bit shorter on the back end sides now, Riley. So yeah, it might have just been a look for the World Cup. But yeah, Hoppy, I mean, he could get a game up front. We may see him even filling on the right wing, because that's where he was introduced as against Wigan. I think he assumed that he was actually playing right back because he seemed incredibly deep whenever he received the ball, but he's still allowed to do what he wants. He's got a mullet and a moustache. So, yeah, I'm all for an appearance for the Hopmeister General, as we have now nicknamed him, Nathan. And apart from that, I think we've covered enough, because that is... I don't have a timer yet, but I imagine it's going to be a fairly hefty one in terms of timings.
Yeah, it will be. And yeah, credit to anyone that's stayed for the full episode here, and not skipped parts out, because we understand that, yeah, it's 3 games all in one podcast. It was just something different, a big bumper episode of the podcast over Christmas, and a joyous one at that as well, as Boro pick up 9 points out of 9 to send us flying high into the playoff places. And let's hope that continues going into the rest of 2023.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that we've never said throughout the full podcast, and I think it's because it's been Christmas as well: Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. And what a start to the new year it's been for Middlesbrough, and hopefully for all of you that are watching and listening. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there, Nathan, because as you say, if you've listened at this point in the podcast, then absolutely fair play, because Nathan's been doing scout reports on the Belgian League. Thank you ever so much for watching and listening. As always, if you've listened, please give us a kind rating on your podcast provider, and the same goes with YouTube. Make sure to subscribe and like if you've enjoyed. And from me, Nathan, Happy New Year to you all. And that has been another episode of the Boropolis Podcast.